Hello, everybody, and welcome to Safest Family on the Block. I'm your host, Jason, and joining me today is Jay Young of the Young Dads Podcast. Jay, how you doing today?
I am doing swell. It's another beautiful day, just another gray, rainy day here in the Northwest. So,
Absolutely. So first of all, I want to mention Jay had me on his podcast again, the Young Dads Podcast, very recently. And could you tell us a little bit about your mission with that show, what you're doing, how long you've been doing it?
definitely. So, the Young Dad podcast, it's something that kind of stems from what I started doing probably 2-3 years ago, probably even longer now. I started Ball Boy Blog, which was just me having an outlet to write about all the things I want to write about, sports, baseball, things like that. And I loved it. It was a lot of fun. And then it slowly transformed, got into podcasting, launched a sports podcast. And then my brother and I, we were talking about, we want to do something, but we did not want to do another sports podcast. We were like, it's oversaturated. It's going to be hard to grow. I'm not into it. You're not that into it. So, we're just gonna not do that. So then we're like, it's kind of happened. Um, so yeah, so that's kind of how that started. And then our mission over there with the Young Dad podcast is to really, it's not just for young dads. I know that's very confusing by the name, but that's because that's our last name is Young. So it's a play on words. We're both dads and it's a podcast. We just hope with that show that we give a space and an outlet for dads and parents and uncles and all people who are involved in kids that they care about lives on a regular basis, that they have something to listen to that helps them not feel so alone, to help them get through the day, to give them tips, tricks, and things, and tools and ideas and thoughts and impressions that they can take a little something from every episode, every guest that we have on, and apply that to their life in some way if they want. If not, they get to listen for an hour and relax and know that, listening to the coolest podcast on earth. That's, chill, it's funny, it's relatable. It's like, man, that's cool. That's a really good point. I feel the same way about my kids and whatnot. So yeah, we recently had Jason on. That was a super fun episode. We talked about a lot of different child safety stuff, and we're growing. We're booking out for more episodes, more guests. So don't be surprised if we ask you to come back on again. So
Well, it would be my privilege. And folks, do check out the podcast. It's a really refreshing take. Like it says, it's not just for young dads, but it's for dads in general. And there's that spirit of camaraderie, that spirit of hearing somebody else is going through some of the same troubles and many of the same joys that we all do. It's a really great show. But
definitely.
all that said, we're not bringing you on today to talk about the Young Dads Podcast. We're here today to talk about something you did earlier in your life where you were involved in water safety. Can you tell us a little bit about that part of your journey?
Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to water safety, that's where I started working. It was my first job working at a pool, working for a recreation department. And I didn't start off working as a lifeguard. I started off working in the office because your boy could not swim. Like I could get in the water. I wasn't afraid of the water. I just couldn't swim enough to be a lifeguard because you have to do a minimum like a 300 meters or 300-yard swim because we're in America. So we use yards, but 300-yard swim, like a 60-second tread, and you had to do it all in a certain time frame. I could do it, but it wasn't in that time frame without a ton of breaks. And it was really rough, and there wasn't enough confidence to be like, yeah, you could do lifeguard training in theory, but in reality, no. So then I got hired and I started working there, and I had access to the pool. So at like 16, 17, told myself, I'm going to learn how to swim. I'm going to get there. So I set it as a goal. So I started working with the other swim instructors and lifeguards and head swim instructors, the assistant manager, and learning all the strokes, learning how to do all of them, putting fins on, putting paddles on, being coached and taught how to swim as a 17-year-old with my peers who were also working at the pool, these you know, awesome girls that were working there too. Seeing me go through this was it was fun. And then from there, I got my lifeguard certificate, and then naturally I got my water safety instructor certificate. And then on top of that, they gave me they trained me how to teach water aerobics, and then they also taught me how to teach adaptive swim lessons. Adaptive swim lessons are swim lessons for children with disabilities, whether physical, mental, or some kind of delays. It's a very specialized, it's a one-on-one kind of swim lesson to make sure that these kids have an environment that works for them so that they can still thrive just the same in swim lessons and within the water, because it's so important for all kids to have these basic skills of water. And yeah, so that's a little bit about my background. Ever since, I've still have those skills. I taught a lot of parent taught classes, which has served me well now, to where I have plenty of games to play with my kids at the pool and look like an idiot while doing it, but it's fun. It's so much fun. Preschool games, parent taught games, they're all a lot of fun, and nothing's really changed over the last decade since I did that. It's all pretty much the same core foundations and the same things that you want to look out for when you're purchasing stuff or putting your kids in the water, things like that. So
yeah, and it's so important to get to your perspective on this show, because that's when people think about family safety, they usually think about crime prevention. But if you look at the statistics about kids that get harmed by violence versus kids who get hurt by making a mistake around the water, it's night and day. The drownings and other accidents at the pool are so much more common than we think.
Yes.
There was that episode of Freakonomics that looked at gun violence in this country. We're recording the day after another terrible mass shooting at an elementary school, and it grabs the headlines. But the danger of a gun in the home is real, but you run that against you run those numbers against the dangers of having a swimming pool in your backyard in California. And water safety is something that we need to pay just as much attention to be just as vigilant about, but that doesn't grab the headlines because they're just not they're not as salacious. They don't get as many eyes on the page.
They don't line as many pockets either.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think where I'd like to start with is, so you've worked as a water safety instructor, you've worked as a lifeguard. What are some of the most common mistakes you see parents and kids making around the water that endangers them?
So when I was doing it, it was 2012, 2013, 14, 15, because I did it for few years within college. So our attachment to our phones wasn't as bad as it is today. However, it was still pretty bad to where it was a very social town and area where I was at. Very social. So everyone knew each other. Everyone knew each other that was going to the pool. Everyone would talk and chit chat, and kids would play in the pool, and no worries, worry free, la 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 la. But the main problem that I saw there was that, and I still see it today, even going to my pool at my gym, is that a parent will drop their kid off, tell them to go swim, go have fun, and then just kind of check out, if you will. Granted, some kids can handle that depending on the size of the pool and whatnot, but my one and only rescue that I ever had, thankfully, it wasn't even an intense rescue, but I was just finishing up my swim lessons, and I was, checking all my kids out. So I'm distracted, right? Because I'm not on duty as a lifeguard, so I don't have to worry about all the kids swimming going on. So the focus on the swim lesson side of things. And I'm talking to a parent, I'm checking out a parent, kid and whatnot. The kid had gotten back in the pool, and she had walked. This is in the kid pool too, but little kids are small. So even a 2-3 foot pool can be big to a small girl. And she was walking, and she had walked to a part of the pool to where imagine just the surface of the water, but then her face and her hair are just under the surface of the pool. But she's not strong enough, or nor does she know how to get herself up to the surface. So I saw her, she's struggling, so I had to jump back in, literally just grab her out real quick and put her on the side. The only rescue I ever had, but just one of the scariest moments of my life, because if I wasn't still standing and looking at the pool and paying attention to my classes and my kids, making sure I got them all out, then who knows what when she would have been noticed if she wasn't noticed sooner, because her mom didn't see her till like she needed to come out of the pool. So
Yeah.
I feel like that's the biggest mistake a lot of parents make, is that we check out and we just assume we don't want to get wet, we don't want to go swimming, whatever, we don't want to smell like chlorine. But at the same time, you should, because the water is great for you, even if you're just gonna walk around and bounce around with your kids. Like, it's good for your knees, it's good for your health. You're getting some active minutes. But then you're there and you can be closer to your kids, because the lifeguards only has 2 eyes to watch all these people in their sight lines. So that's probably the biggest thing, is that we just kind of disconnect and we just expect them to be okay without worrying about them. And I would say that's probably the biggest, misconception about water, is that they're going to be fine, they can figure it out. But most of the kids I see, even at the gym, don't know what they're doing or how to swim. They're just kind of having fun with their friends, and they're just splashing around, and they're big enough to be in the pool because they're physically big enough to be there. So,
and that brings up, I think, one of the most important things that I was taught. I've never got certification, but I've been asking a lot of smart people questions about kid safety. And one of the things that was brought up is that drowning doesn't look like we think drowning looks like. When we're watching TV, drowning looks like a model in a very small bikini top bobbing above the water going, help, help, I'm drowning, help, help. Where real drowning looks like what you're talking about, where it's quiet, it's subtle, and it's very easy to miss.
Yeah, 100%. And so a lot of people, on top of that, being a lifeguard and whatnot, a lot of people kind of just let their kids go buck wild in the pool. And parents, you need to realize that every pool has rules for a reason. Your kids can't run free. Your kids can't be roughhousing in the pool. They can't be tackling each other and whatnot. They can throw a ball. They can have fun. They can ride on pool noodles, ride on inflatables. That's fine. But when they're spit in the water out of the pool noodle, they get yelled at to stop, because they could easily suck that water in when they go breathe in, spit it out. We tell them to stop roughhousing, because little kids often don't know their own strength. They don't know where the boundaries are, because you haven't taught them those boundaries and the physical play and whatnot. And so they're roughhousing in the pool like they would on the ground, but then they're smashing each other underwater without being conscious of, the goggles could fall down and go around their neck and get twisted, or they could slam each other underwater and with their mouth open and suck in a bunch of water really quickly, and then their airways blocked. And you can't see that, because all you see as a parent or as a lifeguard is a big splash of water come up. So you're waiting for that to go down in the couple seconds and waiting for them to come back up and back and over, So it's like there's all these rules. It seems naggy when lifeguards are like, hey, sweetie, don't do that. Or hey, sir, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. But those split seconds when we're telling them not to do it, and the result, that split 2 to 5 seconds, that's when their airway gets blocked. And that's when it happens, because drowning is quiet, because your airway is blocked. You are underwater already, most likely. If you're swimming and you hit your head, underwater already. And it looks like you're just floating. It's very misconceiving. It's a big misconception when it comes to what that few seconds look like when a child or someone else is in danger in the water.
And those rules, they're there because somebody got hurt, often badly. Maybe not at that pool, but at some pool. When I ran my karate school, we'd go to the pool every once in a while in the summer, and I'd always show them. You probably won't be able to see, but I got a scar right here, and this is why you don't run at the pool. I slipped, and took a header on the edge of the pool, and I woke up underwater. And it's, I was out for just a split second, and the lifeguards never came because I didn't bleed. It's just kind of a dent. But I just kind of got over to the side and sat there. I was in 8th grade, but that could have been very bad.
No, definitely.
And then I think also, we're talking right now about swimming pools, which have a nice list of rules of how to stay safe. if we're going swimming in open water, there's a set of standard rules, and also knowing about the rip tides, knowing about the currents of that particular swimming hole.
Open water is nuts.
Yeah.
Open water is
Knowing what
nuts
kind of
because
animals, are
exactly.
there. You're
And
out there in the
then
Tri-Cities, you got rattlesnakes every once in a while, and they do love those cool little glens where people go swimming.
exactly. And the thing about open water is that
Mhm.
it's not predictable. You don't know
Yeah.
when there's going to be a quick drop off
Mhm.
from 2 feet to 4 feet,
Yeah.
just steep drop off, because that's
Mhm.
just earth, that's just sedentary rock and dirt and sand underneath that water. And it just moves how it moves. It's not a controlled environment like a pool,
Mhm.
because a pool's flat, it's concrete, it's not going to move. It's not labeled how deep it is at any given time. With the tide, it could be higher up, it could be lower, water could go out, the tide could come in, the tide could go out. Open waters, definitely something that if you have small children and you're taking them to open water, definitely put some kind of flotation device on them. Unless you say to them, you stay in front of me explicitly. You're in front of me, you're in the deeper part of it, because I would hope that you're the stronger swimmer, at least the stronger person, to be able to get back against those tides and whatnot. But then they're in front of you, you can keep an eye on them. Also, open water is disgusting. Um, it's not clean.
Mhm.
It looks pretty, makes some good pictures, but that water's, you know, just filled with dirt and animal poop, bird poop, geese poop. It's
Mhm.
not the cleanest, so it's fun though. It's fun in moderation.
Mhm. Like so many things.
Exactly.
But and those places have this. They have a list of rules, even though they're not posted.
Mm-hmm.
And like you say, one of them is keep your kid within arm's reach. Swim where people can swim.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's another important point for parents, that there was a challenge for me where I grew up swimming. My mom, I found out later, was almost phobic level afraid of us kids drowning. It was this thing that she obsessed over, to the point that I don't remember learning how to swim. I was taught to swim so early that I've always known how to swim.
Mm-hmm.
But am I a strong enough swimmer to rescue a 13-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
and grab my 13-year-old and get back to shore? That's a
Mm-hmm.
whole different swimming level of swimming skills. And so parents, taking a swim lesson or getting in the habit of swimming laps, putting that into your cardio routine or something like that, can be so very valuable for our family safety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. So it's very important that you also establish your own rules when you're going
Mhm.
to those open water, even going to a controlled environment like a pool.
Mhm.
Making sure your kids know the rules and what's going to be expected of them as you get there,
Mhm.
especially if you have younger kids. You know, one of the biggest mistakes I feel people make with younger kids is they put water wings on them. The plastic blow up water wings. Those are so dangerous. It scares the crap out of me when I see parents put water wings on their kids, because they have no, they're fun, they're cute, yeah, they're cool, but they don't offer any real safety because it's just on your arms. It doesn't help them from going forward. It doesn't help them from going backward. It does nothing to protect them, except it helps them look cute, maybe have a little bit of confidence. So if you have plastic watering wings and you're listening to this, throw them out, because they're a waste of money and they're just awful plastic that's going to end up back in the ocean anyway. Um, However, what I would recommend is anything that is Coast Guard approved. Water wings, if you look at their boxes, look at their packaging, none of them say Coast Guard approved, US Coast Guard approved, because they're not Coast Guard approved. My favorite thing that I've gotten for my kids are not life jackets. Life jackets are great for boating and for being out on open water when you're going to be jumping and things like that in very large bodies of water, but you want them to be like able to enjoy it at the same time. Life jackets are perfect for that. The first life jacket that I would recommend is, make sure if it's for a child, make sure it goes all the way around their bodies, and make sure it has the strap that goes between their legs.
Mhm.
Not the kind that just go over the front, because a little kid, likely their body isn't strong enough to maneuver that and to actually, get the most out of that buoyancy. Those are made more for adults because we can manipulate them, we can move our bodies back and forth. But definitely a life jacket helps your child, with the strap, because that helps them go forward, backwards. It tips them where they need to go for them, and it keeps them in that position. The next is those, so they have the water wings, but they also have the chest piece across the front. And they have the strap that goes around the back. Those are amazing. Those are the best because they help when your kid's not as strong, they're going to tip your kid back and they're just going to be floating on their back, which is great for kids because that is the most foreign feeling to a child that they hate the most. But it's
the safest position to be in the water too.
Very true.
Yeah.
So, that's what the life jacket does with the strap between the legs. It puts them on their back when they're not strong enough for it. It kind of just auto defaults to putting them on their back. Water wings will just tip them forward, backward, sideways, or won't do anything at all. The other one will, with across the chest, is when they get strong enough, they can actually lean themselves forward. It keeps them from putting their face in the water because they can't, their little necks can't get over the front of that. Except my 2-year-old figured out how to hack that, and she can bob herself into the water and back up on her own accord. I'm like, well, that only took a year for you to figure those out. When she first got it, she could only go on her back and it would just tip her. And then she finally figured out to put herself forward, and now she just bobs with it. Has so much fun. But those are what I would highly recommend. Make sure it says Coast Guard approved. U.S. Coast Guard has a stamp on it. And I would avoid water wings because water wings aren't going to do anything. So if you do go to open water or even pools, with little kids who aren't the strongest swimmers, say, sorry, I get it. You're not the strongest swimmer right now. That's on me as your parent to, help you with that. But since you're just going to be playing whatnot, you need to wear this because it's what you need so you can have the most fun.
And make it as mandatory as seatbelts and bike helmets.
Exactly. Because it needs to be. It needs to be, especially in those environments. I don't care if you're going to get made fun of by your friends for having a floaty on. You're going to wear your damn floaty and you're going to like it because it's going to keep you safe and you're going to have just as much fun and no one's even going to notice that you have it on, really.
Nice. Yeah.
Plus it has a cool seahorse on it.
Well, yeah. Or a unicorn or whatever you want to put on there.
Exactly.
And, not for nothing, but right now, and this isn't a paid promotion or anything, but we're recording this in either late winter or early spring, depending on where you live. So right about now is when Costco starts to stock just piles of life preservers and life jackets and swimming aids. Yeah. And most of those are Coast Guard approved. So if
Costco
you don't have
has a great selection.
Yeah.
Costco has an excellent selection. Just avoid the plastics unless they're toys. Inflatables they like sit on and inflatables to hang out on and things like that.
Yeah.
Please do not put 2 pieces of inflated plastic on your child's arms.
Yeah.
Because they are not going to do anything for your child.
And they also, not only do they not do anything for our children, but they also create a false sense of security in them and in us.
Yes. So that's the other thing that I want to hit on. It creates that false insecurity. There's 2 things that when I was teaching when I would teach preschool kids and kindergarten kids in those early swim lessons, one thing that I would not let them have when they're in the water is I would not let them have obviously any flotation device, but I didn't let them have goggles either. I only let my oldest daughter, who's almost 6 now in a few months, have goggles when she's explicitly going to be going underwater, like a lot, like playing with rings or toys like that. But if she's just swimming around or has to go take her swim test or something to go on the big inflatable, I'm like, give me your goggles. Give me your goggles. I'm a little bit more lax with it now with like swim tests and whatnot, but but when she was learning how to swim, it was no goggles. I see a lot of parents put the freaking goggles with the nose piece on their little kids. It's like, okay, you're literally ruining them being able to learn how to breathe in the water. You're literally taking away their chance to learn the skills. Goggles are great as they get older and get more competitive with swimming or whatnot, but they're not needed for young children because, again, it gives them that false sense of security. I have legitimately had children who are in kindergarten, first grade, or somewhere in elementary school that will not get into a swim lesson without their goggles because they're a security blanket.
Yeah.
But if they fell into a pool randomly and they didn't have their goggles, then what's going to happen?
Yeah.
They're drowning because they don't, in their brains, they can't swim without their goggles. So that's why it's so important to teach them to swim the basics without their goggles, because then they're confident enough. So if they fell in, they were at a birthday party with a pool, they fall in, they're able to get right back out and, get moving again.
Yeah.
So
All those things, those little skills that turn up what might have been a tragedy into just an inconvenience.
Exactly. Like, oh, you fell in. Oh, you swam to the side. Good job. Scoot yourself down to the ladder, climb out, whatever. Like, you're fine. They know they're fine because they were able to get themselves out of it. But if they needed their goggles, well, that's a big problem now because you trained them to be codependent on those as a security blanket, as a method that water equal goggle have to be on. I can't function without goggle. I drown because I'm too scared. I have too much fear in me because of my mom, my dad, whoever would always put these on me. And now I can't function in water without them.
And then they're panicking in the water, which is the worst thing to do if you're in water over your head.
Exactly. And they're freaking out. That's where that splashy, Hollywood-esque, drowning comes from, because they start splashing, getting nervous. But then eventually, they're going to, 10, 15 seconds. Little kids can't tread water for very long. And, then they're going to splash that water. They're going to start sucking it in. They're going to swallow it, airway blocked. They're underwater. It's over before it started, as quick as it started. So it's sad. It's sad. So those are a few things that I recommend for parents. Find the right flotation device for your child. And as soon as they start to grow out of it, let them use it less and less, but make sure that they're also learning, just basic swimming skills as you take it away from them and wean them off of it.
Yeah. And I think that false sense of security is something to touch on again. As you say, parents bring the kids to the pool, figure there's a lifeguard on duty, and then they go over there and chat, get on their phones. We have that backyard pool at somebody's house, and there's a barbecue, and all the parents are kind of assuming another parent's keeping an eye on the kids.
Yeah, everyone's always assuming someone else is doing it in those situations. Like, I used to get hired for private parties when I was in high school, because some families were very smart. They're like, we need a lifeguard here because we're gonna get smashed, and we don't want to have to worry about our kids' safety. So we're gonna hire. So I think that was still very responsible of them to do. Like, they knew that we're not gonna be paying a whole lot of attention. But
so they hired a lifeguard. I'd never heard of that, but that's really smart.
Yeah, so it's something that if you go down to your local pool, not all pools will allow it, but mine did at the time. As long as it was, didn't conflict with any shifts that they had, and then they weren't and they were being paid cash. So I would get paid cash for these gigs, and I thought it was awesome because I got free food. I would just borrow a freaking lifeguard, tube thing. I would just borrow that. My boss was cool with it. So it definitely depends on the pool. But if you're gonna have a birthday party and you have a pool and you're gonna have younger children, elementary age children, it's probably a good idea because you can probably convince them to come and be at your party for 2 hours for about $30-$40 and some free food. And it's going to be well worth it for the safety of all your kids there.
Yeah. And if you can't do that for whatever reason, I'm reminded of, the rule, if you're first on the scene in an accident and you're starting first aid, you never say somebody call 911. You point, you in the blue hat, call 911.
That's one of our basic skills when we go through lifeguard training, is that we assess the scene. We assess the scene for damages, other dangers, things like that. You assess the scene, and then you do exactly that. You start your CPR, you start your life-saving devices and things like that you need to do. And then whoever it is, there, you say, you with the blue hat, go call 911. You also go call 911. Usually you want multiple people to do that. So then it's like higher odds, because someone could freak out, panic, or whatnot, and you say, I want you in the blue hat, you in the red shirt, you in the yellow blouse, go call 911 for me. You keep doing your thing, 911 comes, they respond, you do your thing, everyone's cool.
Yeah, and likewise, if you don't have a paid lifeguard on duty at a party with your pool, or if you're all out at the beach for the weekend, you have one person who is there explicitly watching the kids in the water.
The designated watcher.
Yeah. And then if you need to pee, you don't say, hey, everybody, I'm taking a break. You say, John, Sarah.
Yeah, because that's when the kids
over.
Are gonna be like, oh snap, time to play.
Yeah. Or just if everybody thinks somebody else is watching, nobody catches the kid who slips underwater.
Yeah, and I think it's very important for those private parties too, to establish those ground rules of, hey, I want y'all to have fun. I want you to, go crazy, but make sure we're very mindful of each other's space and bodies, and we're nice to each other. No roughhousing. Make sure y'all don't run. Make sure you don't take anything in the pool. If you need to use the bathroom, get out of the pool, go to the bathroom. Here's the bathroom. There's all those rules that you want covered that you don't want to worry about, in addition to having someone that's designated there watching the kids.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's a couple people, depending on how many kids. I say one adult per 10 kids. Is reasonable, because usually they're going to group off. So then you have like 10 kids in 3 groups. So it's just not as crazy to watch them, but just make sure you're ready. Make sure you have, methods and things ready to help. Make sure that whoever's watching them ideally knows CPR. Or is at least comfortable getting them out of the water, so that they're not just staying in the water, unless they broke their neck, and that's a whole nother ball game. Unless they have a serious head injury or something, that's a whole nother ball game that someone needs to be trained for to do, because so whole nother ball game. But just get them on their back. Just get whoever's in the water, head injury or not, get them on their back, keep them stable. There are ways to do CPR in the water. They're very complicated, very dangerous if you're not trained properly how to do them.
And the good news is that training is available to all of us most of the time. Some of it's expensive, some of it's time consuming, but a lot of it's worth it.
Exactly.
We as parents, especially as fathers, we don't mind going to take our Krav Maga class, take some range time, take a accelerated driving course, but we could use a refresher on our swimming lessons.
Yeah, no, I love doing it. It gives me a refresher on just like the basic things I know now, teaching my kids how to do it. It makes me aware, like, okay, if this happens here, then I'm gonna have to dive down and get her, and just these skills come flooding back. Once you learn them, you don't forget them. Yeah.
So Jay, thank you so much for coming on and sharing our knowledge. Again, folks, you can find him at the Young Dads Podcast. Where else are you available to answer any questions that we didn't cover?
So you can find me on. So I have a couple places on Instagram that you can find me. You can find me at Young Dad Pod on Instagram. You can find me at the Ballboy blog on Instagram as well. You can find me on Ballboy blog or ballboymedia.com. You can find me on Twitter at ballboyj. You can find me on. You can also find our other Twitter at Young Dad Pod on Twitter. Let's see. You can find our Facebook pages. There's 2 Facebook pages. There's one for Ballboy blog, and there's one for the Young Dad Podcast on Facebook. So we're multiple outlets, multiple places. Happy to talk about either one, answer questions, just about any part of water safety, because it's so important. It's important to me because it's something I care about, something that I love doing. I did it for a lot of years, and it's fun. The water's a great place. It's summertime. It's cool. It's refreshing. But please make sure your kids are safe. Make sure you're well equipped going to the pool. We didn't even touch on like sunscreen or anything, but I'm of the fair nature, being mixed ethnicities. I'm still on the fair side. I tan really well, but just because I tan really well doesn't mean I don't need to use a little bit of sunscreen every now and then. Your kids, their skin's fragile. Make sure you put the sunscreen on them. So sun safety, water safety, it's one and the same. Make sure you are protecting your kids at
Yeah.
in all areas when it comes to the pool. So happy to answer all those questions and all those things on any of the platforms. So
That's it. Well, thank you, Jay, for coming on. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.